Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to be talking about why it's so important to begin to choose wisely. The choices you make now are going to have major impacts on your success in this thing coming into the bull market that is hopefully coming next year. Okay, so we're at a very crucial time and it's important. So we're going to talk about just overall things to look at, best practices, what I do when I'm looking at things, and just different comparisons to kind of give you an idea of what to do, and just scenarios that have happened recently that show you kind of what not to do. Okay, so if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So this will be our first video post freaking Milton, right? For you guys who are familiar, down here in the Tampa area, so we got hit extremely hard. Overall damage wise, not a ton of damage. We did have some roof damage, a lot on the soffit, fascia coverings, a lot of crap blown everywhere, a lot of trees down, etc. But overall, not too bad, because hopefully, luckily we are a little bit more inland, so we didn't get as impacted as people along the coast. I know a lot of people were super concerned, like, oh man, seeing the devastation. If any guys unfamiliar, a lot of the damage tends to happen along the coast. So yes, it's beautiful to live along the coastline, near the beach and stuff, but in Florida, it is extremely dangerous. A lot of things can happen, a lot of damage can happen if we ever get a major hurricane. And we finally did, right? It's the first time, I think they were saying, in 103 years that we had a direct impact. We've been grazed by them, they've come along the coast, they've came pretty close, but this is the first one that came pretty much right at us. It did end up hitting a little bit south, it hit closer to Sarasota, but crazy times down here. Still not back to normal. It's going to be quite a while because unfortunately things were impacted pretty severely on every end, but we are slowly getting there. But as far as me, on a personal note, we are good. Yes, we did have a little bit of damage, but it's really hard to complain about anything in comparison to people who were farther along the coast, because it is pretty bad, bros. But anyway, let's get back on topic. So a big part of today's video is just going to be make sure you're making the right choices. This was a good example, right? We just had Pyron just fully rug. And this is one of those things, guys, where if you're going to mine and hodl, or you're going to hodl anything, right? Whether you're mining, buying, whatever, make sure that you know what you're getting into. Make sure you know your allocation and what it is. Like, remind yourself, why are you holding that thing? Do you think there is value here? Do you think it's going to go up? How high? What is the ceiling? What's going on there? What is the team doing? Who is it backed by? Is that team doxed? Is it fair launched? Is it VC backed? Like, what is going on with the project? Understand that project and understand what you're holding, right? It's one thing if you're going to mine it and sell it on the daily, or sell it once a week, or sell it every couple of days. That's fine, and realistically, that's the way to do a lot of these things, right? Especially when it's early, you're speculating, you're stacking before it goes on exchanges. That's the way to kind of play it. Maybe if you see potential there, then it's one to hold, but like things like this, Carlson, things that are like copy pastas of other things, or they're just like forks, it's garbage, right? Versus something that has a chance, right? Something that's novel, something that's new, something that is doing something different. Maybe it could be worthwhile to hold some of that, right? But you have to understand that there's always the potential of this, right? Whether it's this, whether it's any coin in reality, whether it's one of these little DePIN things you're buying, understand that this is always a possibility. You have to look into that coin, look into that team, look into the tokenomics, look into the emissions, look at everything, right? Especially if you're going to hold that coin. If you're just going to mine and sell while it's new and pumping, not that big of a deal, but this is more pertaining to holding the coin, right? Make sure you're holding it. Make sure you're following your gut, right? This is why it's important for you to do your research, you to come up with your thesis, your game plan, and your opinion of it, so you can determine what your allocation is going to be. Like, is it a high conviction play for you? Is it not so much? Like, are you in that sector? So do you really see the benefits of it? Do you see something that somebody else doesn't? You have to come up with that, because you're going to see a lot of bullshit everywhere, right? People's videos giving bullshit opinions, or you go in the comment section and it's nothing but fucking negative Nancy's and dramatic ass people just doing all this bullshit. Like, do your own research, actually look things up, and go with it. Like one common one I've been getting a lot with is like Aleo, for example. Oh, it's just a scam coin. It's a VC coin. It just came out of nowhere and it's going to pump and dump and it's going to zero. So this coin has been in development for a very long time. Very VC backed, a lot of funding, a lot of stuff going on here. Okay, so this is this one that's going to go to zero and it got this high valuation for nothing. No, it's been in testnet for well over 2 years, right? I think when we talked about it, had done a video, this was in December 22. We're talking about spec coins and we're talking about getting into the testnet. That video, thinking about spec mining, watch this first with the little Aleo symbol, that was in December 22. And at that point, I believe that was the second phase of that testnet we were initially going to get into, but after researching, right, kind of very similar topic to what we're talking about now, at that time, if you were in pretty much North America, Canada, US, you had to KYC, and if you were from one of those two countries, you were not going to get any allocation no matter what, right? So I was already, hyped up and ready to jump on the testnet, downloading everything, and then realizing later on that actually if I would have wasted all that freaking time and power because I wouldn't have been able to get any of the allocation. Okay, so that's why it's important to look at those things. But what we're talking about here is just, it's a coin that has been in development, has been here for a long time. It's one I'm very, very familiar with. We've been following very closely since the beginning and even afterwards, right? We did a video with the Bitmain announcement, which yes, that was damn near a year ago now, because again, this is one that got delayed many times, right? It got delayed. It was initially supposed to come out at the beginning of the year. It wasn't too long after this when it was supposed to be. It was like it was sometime in the spring. They were saying Q1, so it was January, February, March, then like April, May, and then it got quiet for a while, and they kept it delayed. And then even with the recent announcement as of a few months ago, I was like, it's gonna keep getting delayed, and then it finally did actually come out, right? So it's one that as soon as it came out, again, it's one we've been following, started GPU mining it. Am I going to go crazy with it? Am I going to buy more GPUs because it's profitable? No. Why? Because there's going to be ASICs for it. And as a matter of fact, there's already FPGAs that have been on it. For you guys remember, we've talked about it many times, that Superscaler was one that was very big into these zero knowledge proofs, right? Because we've done videos talking about proving systems, which there's going to be other coins. It's not just Aleo. We've talked about it like in these videos with like Tycho, Scroll. Like there's a lot of ZKP projects coming out, and hopefully it actually does bring us some potential revenue. But again, the reason it kind of fell off the hype train a little bit was because of all the hardware that was already going to be coming out for it, right? A lot of the FPGAs were already ready for it. Like Superscaler was already developing bigger units specifically for proving, right? Because it's going to be a different system than your conventional ASICs, which is why that Bitmain one's probably going to take a while. It's probably going to be more of a server style thing, something more similar to like the Filecoin server, something of that sort, but it'll be interesting. But that's why I wouldn't necessarily buy GPUs and such for it. But it is definitely a nice little jump in revenue, bringing a little bit of excitement back to GPU mining, at least for now, right? And it's definitely doing well with those core-based cards, right? So like 4090s, 4080s are doing extremely well. More memory cards aren't doing as hot, but something to consider there. But what you want to look into when you're looking at things like this are, number one, unlocks, circulating supply, and if you're going to hold this thing, you got to be familiar with all those things because it can impact the growth potential severely, or like price action, right? Because if there's going to be a huge unlock coming, you got to be aware with those things with any of these VC-backed coins, right? So there's a lot of things you got to follow, a lot of things you got to look at, and a lot of things you got to research, right? So like a big one here, I'm going to talk about specifically with CMC, is the fact that the information here is incorrect, right? So people are looking at it, oh, it's out of the top 200, still has a lot of room for growth. That is incorrect. Why? Because the information here is incorrect. They have the circulating supply listed as 107 million, when in reality, it's actually double that. Okay, so that's going to drastically change the overall ranking. Another thing to factor in with CMC is that they are owned by Binance, and they have this bullshit where they will not rank you above the top 200 unless you made a specific criteria by them. They've never specified exactly what that is. The speculation is that it's based on being listed on Binance, and as well as a few other things, which then potentially having to pay their way in, whatever it is, that's the main reason we saw it with Caspa, where it took freaking like a year for them to finally correct their official ranking in terms of market cap. And the same thing actually happened with Aleo. When it was in this range, in the $6-7 range, the market cap was well above, even at this incorrect circulating supply, it was well above the threshold to be within the top 200, but it was incorrect. Okay, so the correct amount actually is 207 million in supply, right? Which we confirmed in the Discord. They did make an announcement about it, so we do know for sure that the CoinGecko listing is correct. And even with this current price action, right, which is down to $2 and change, it's ranked number 136. Meaning the current market cap is over $500 million. So when it was in the $6-7 range, it was already at about $1.5 billion already. Okay, so this is not something where you're super early and you're going to get a 20-30x from here. So keep those things in mind, right? Especially with this coin like this. So it's always good to, again, look at the research, look at the tokenomics, look at the locks, look at the unlocks, look at the sentiment, look at the community. Is it bullshit numbers? Is it fake numbers? Like, I know they have a ridiculous amount of people in their Discord. Like, it's a lot of things you got to look at, right? So and that's why it's hard to, like, I know there's people who have like 40, 50 allocations. It's extremely hard to keep up with that many coins. I personally like keeping it to a smaller amount just because I can closely follow and kind of like follow these things and see when it's time to buy, time to sell. There's this unlock coming here, blah, blah, blah. And just to be more aware of those things, because a lot of those things will have massive effects on the price. Okay, so again, if this is one you're planning on holding, just understand that the market cap is fairly big in comparison to some of the other coins. And for me, at least, me personally, I'm not looking right now. I'm looking more for higher spec coins, right? So like, to me, there's still a lot of coins that do have extremely good value that I would rather be holding than this thing ranked at this high of a market cap, right? So there's a bad coin though. No, is it going to pump? It's going to do well. It's going to have that VC money, but it's also going to have a shitload of coins unlocking in a year or so. Okay, there's a lot of shenanigans with this. And again, that's the problem with the VC coins, is that you have to understand, you have to be able to play that game. Okay, so just make sure you understand what you're getting yourself into. And if you're going to be holding this thing, or if you're just going to be mining it and selling it, which is what I'm going to be doing. Okay. So just make sure you understand that. And it's just same thing with these other coins, right? Like, do they really have value? Do they really do something? Are they something new? Or are we going to see something similar with things like this piece of shit also with Carlson? Okay, this is another one that a lot of us did jump on early. And that's the right way to do it, right? Spec it, get it before it's listed, and then dump it up here. Because, I mean, look at the price action of this thing. Okay, so does it mean that it's not worth mining at all? No, you can mine it if it's profitable, if it's doing its thing, and then if you think there's value there, like personally, if you think there is some kind of potential there, then go for it, right? This is something that you have to determine. Or for me, any of these fucking copy pasta things, I'm not a fan of at all whatsoever. To me, their purpose is to just mine speculatively as soon as it lists, dump that thing, and then if it is profitable to mine still, mine it and then dump it for what you do have conviction in. Mine it for something you do want to hold. Or if you see value there, again, it's to each their own with any of these things. This is not to sway you to buy this or to buy that. If you think there's value here, you're in the community, you think it's going to do well, it's doing this, it's doing that, then go for it. But make sure you understand that the possibility of this is much more likely with coins like this that aren't really doing something new, that are just forks of things, that just make sure you understand what you're getting yourself into and just hold it accordingly, right? And it's not just for, you know, GPU mineable coin, it's for anything, right? And we're going to see this just continue with different things. And again, it's important to understand the dynamics of these things. One important thing that I'll continue to harp on whenever I see good examples is understanding just the way market caps work, the way potential of that coin works, different things. So we'll do a comparison here with two DePIN projects. They're not similar at all. Tokenomics are completely different. Everything's completely different. But just to give you an example of the importance of looking at market cap, especially when you're doing kind of projections on prices. Like, oh, okay, I think it'll go up to this amount. This is the ceiling. This is where it could potentially go. Even short-term wise. Not even necessarily like as a long-term hold, even short-term wise. Okay. So we'll show Demo, for example. And with theirs, Currently, it's at 13 cents, right? We can see it's definitely way lower than the recent highs back in the spring, where it was as high as like 52 cents at different times, that have peaks and valleys. Overall, could be a 4x, even if it just returns to bear market highs. It's never gone through a bull market, so currently rank number 688, only a $30 million market cap. Not bad at all. When you look at the overall market cap, you can kind of see it's keeping up with the price, right? It pretty much mirrors the existing price. Because what is the market cap? It's just the amount of coins in circulation multiplied by the current price of the coin and gives you the overall market cap. Okay, so at this point, it's been a gradual release. The emissions are there and it's doing its thing, right? Currently, the price action, just like every coin, isn't doing too well. But you can see that the market cap and the price pretty much are going in tandem. It's not going to be the case with everything, right? Because the common metric we see when we're doing comparisons, people are like, oh, okay, it's at 13 cents now. It'll definitely at least reach this just to reach even the bear market highs. I think it'll do it even in the short term, right? I think we're going to go through October right now, and I think this is potential within the next 3 months. Normally, if this is the case where the market cap keeps in line, sure, right? It can happen. Not going to happen with every coin though, right? There's going to be coins where you look at this thing, same thing, and we'll do it. And this is a completely different perspective. This is with the honey token with Hive Mapper. So it's currently, this thing's at about 5 cents. Recent highs were as high as like the 25, 30-cent range, peaks and valleys around there. Okay, so if you're looking at it like, oh, okay, I think a 5x is possible in the same amount of time. You know, if we go through October, kind of similar thing as Demo, almost the same thing actually, right? About a 4 or 5x from those previous highs. Definitely think it's possible. Not the same thing here, right? So they did must have had a significant increase amount of either coins unlocking or the amount of missions changed. I don't know what the hell it was because I don't follow it too closely, but you can definitely tell when we look at the market cap. And again, this is over the same period, right? This is on the 1 year chart. When we're looking at Demo on the 1 year chart, again, looking at the price action, the way it's followed, very similar, right? Even the peaks and the times. But when we go to the market cap on the honey token, look at that thing. The market cap currently at the 5 cent range is damn near as high as when it was in those 25 and 30 cent ranges. Why? Because a shitload more coins got released in circulation, right? Whether it was unlocks or they just increased the emissions, whatever it is, it definitely did not go in tandem with the price. Okay, so again, the market cap currently is the same as where it was back here in these prices. Okay, so it's not the same kind of value proposition, right? This one also is a much higher market cap range. It's ranked number 297. The tokenomics also are completely different. There is no max supply here versus like Demo, for example. It does have a max supply of 1 billion tokens, so the tokenomics are kind of better there. But these are different things you got to factor in, that it's not as simple as just looking at previous numbers and saying, oh, it's going to hit there. You have to look at those market caps, right? Because again, the market cap currently at this nickel price is almost as high as these previous highs. Okay, so it's not the same value proposition. Okay, not to say that there's not money to be made here. It's just the potential is different. Okay, you got to understand these things. You got to understand market caps. You got to understand how the tokenomics work, how the emissions work, everything about that coin, because that's what allows you to make actual price targets, price predictions, things of that sort. Okay, you gotta understand these things, and a lot of people as miners do not give a shit about it, and that's fine, right? But I'm not that person. I'm all over the crypto world. I'm into like every aspect possible. I love learning everything I can about it, right? And this is one that to me is kind of a big reason why some people are more successful than others. It just depends on what you're holding, if you're holding, right? And that's another thing, that it's just the overall strategy is going to be different for people also. Mine specifically is mining and hodling. So if you're going to be hodling these coins, you got to understand these kinds of things. If you're just mining and selling on the monthly, which is some people's strategy also, some people do not hodl a damn thing. They trade it as a straight up revenue generating business. And that's fine also, and that's something I'm going to start doing next year. But for me in the bear market, that's not the name of the game, right? Because realistically, for me to mine, $2,000 worth of coins a month and have to sell $1,900 to pay the power and end up with $100, that ain't worth it, right? In the bull market, when now things are actually much more profitable, it makes more sense. But for me, I'm more of a speculator. I'm more of an investor, right? That's kind of where the naming moniker comes from. Mining stacker, stacking the coins, you know, accumulating. That's kind of the play on that. But it just really depended on your strategy, right? So make sure you fully understand what you're doing there. And even aside from the coins, also even the hardware you're choosing. Remember, this is the thing that people are missing with the mining and everything. That piece of hardware is also an asset that can potentially increase in price, increase in worth, increase in value. Okay? And just because you're buying this, especially for you new guys are getting wrecked horribly because you're under this weird assumption that it's guaranteed that you're going to ROI on that unit, that you're actually going to make money on that. None of that stuff is guaranteed. Like, I got to do a video on that because people have this horrible assumption that they're going to make their money back in a few months with many things. Not going to be the case. It's very speculative. It's only going to get worse. I know everybody's all doom and gloom with the amount of ASICs coming out and there's new release every week, and there pretty much is, right? Expect it to accelerate in a few months here. In the next 3 to 6 months, it's going to get crazy. Not just with ASICs, but with a lot of these DePIN things, a lot of weird sensors. Like even right now, it's been almost like weekly. There's been a new little piece of shit little DePIN device that's coming out. Not to say that they're all pieces of crap. Some are going to do extremely well. Others are not, though. You got to also understand that part. Okay, so it's a part of understanding what you're getting into, looking at the price. Like if something's $200, why not, right? But you have to see if there's going to be value in it, right? Research that project, research that coin. What are they doing? What kind of data is it providing? Is it going to actually generate revenue? Or is this something that's going to be like more on the Ponzi side, right? And it's to each your own. There's money to be made on either side. But just fully understand that some of these will flop, some of these will not do well, and some of these will do extremely well. But again, the ones that actually are able to generate revenue or able to have an actual use case that's functional, like for me, that's what makes sense. And those are the DePIN projects I'm going to go into, right? So you guys know I'm a big fan of Demo. And it's because there is actual use there. Okay, if any guys are interested, I will have a link for the demo, the new demo in there if any guys are interested in that thing. But just in general, there's actual use case for it. That's actual data that's valuable to people. It's valuable potentially to insurance companies, to people creating dApps with that information, to these car manufacturers. Same thing potentially with like Helium, right? Helium Mobile specifically, more bullish on so than anything. Out of the other ones, one that I'm very bullish on is GeoNet. It's one I actually don't have. It's one that I'll probably end up just buying the coin instead. I'm going to DCA into. Just because of the price of it. It's like at this point the price is still low comparatively to where it's at. But just understand though with these things, understand the risk. Understand that it's not always going to be guaranteed to make that money because a lot of these will be bullshit. Right? So just make sure you're fully aware of that because this is also going to accelerate extremely. In case you haven't noticed, this is going to be a very big narrative, and it already has been a big narrative this whole past year, right? And it's going to continue to escalate. So it's going to be important to pick the potential winners. And which ones are going to be the winners? We don't know, right? Could be the one that I have zero faith in, and the one that doesn't make sense, that could be the one that has the Ponzi-nomics that cause it to 100x from here. We don't freaking know. Right? But this is why it's important for you to trust your research, you to trust your thing, your intuition, maybe your background in it, maybe you have some background in it and you can see the value in it. Like I'm a car guy, so it's easy for me to see the value with Demo. Or with Helium Mobile, it's very easy to see the value there. It's very easy to see that data. With Hive Mapper, I know people having beef with them recently, but that's another one that it is actually generating revenue. That's the key thing you want to see. Or is it something that's going to reward you in a token, but they currently have no use for it, no resale market for it, no way of generating revenue, right? And at the end of the day, we don't know, right? Could be one of these that I'm not a big fan of that end up doing the best. Maybe WeatherXM gets a deal with some major network provider and becomes their official provider of data or something. I don't know, right? There's a ton of different things, but it's up to you to determine what you think is going to work out the best because it's going to be hard, bros, if you had like that coulda, woulda, shoulda thing and you look next year and that coin that you were going to buy and like, I don't think so. It turns into something that does like 100x or something, right? This is the hard part. This is where you have to do your research, look at different things. Like, for example, with GeoNet, our big thing that got me super bullish is when VanEck released this article that they are mega bullish on GeoNet. It's one that it's had a lot of potential because there's a lot of use case here, right? For a lot of different things. So that's potentially why, number one, they're bullish on it. And this is why if they're bullish on it, giving good vibes, right? So it's up to you to determine what's going on there, for you to come up with your own opinion and kind of just see if there's going to be value there, if normies are going to buy into it. Because a lot of them also don't make sense. A lot of them, it's like, who the hell is going to use that data? It's even just the speculation aspect that could cause it to be a winner, right? Like, for example, last cycle with helium, the IoT devices, all freaking speculation. Turns out, as far as being in terms of revenue, trash, right? As far as like as a business model, is it still making money as a miner though? Yes, that little thing is still making a freaking $1 a day, or like 80-90 cents. In terms of a revenue generating business, like if helium, if that was their only terms of revenue, would they be doing well? Absolutely not, right? Reason being is just it's so cheap that it just doesn't generate a lot of revenue, even if it's getting a lot of use. Like mine actually gets a ton of use, and I think it's because of my two existing macrons, because they use the helium device, and I'm sure there's others in the neighborhood, because mine on the data side, on the IoT side, it's ranked in the top 400 out of all the damn little IoT devices in terms of data throughput. But in terms of how much IoT it makes from that data throughput, even at being at the high of a level, it's only a fraction of what I get from proof of coverage. Proof of coverage makes me way more than what it does, and it's just because it's so cheap, it just doesn't generate enough real world revenue to really justify its price, right? So you have to look at those different things. But again, just the speculation aspect alone is enough to sell it. Again, that's why freaking helium last freaking cycle is going for like 40-50 bucks a token, right? If helium didn't have the helium mobile side, would it be valued that much? Would I be bullish on it? Hell no, right? Helium mobile is a different animal though. That one is generating revenue. As they get these partnerships, that does have the potential to increase revenue pretty drastically. Okay, so that's kind of to each their own on that front. You have to look at different things and why you value them. And then sometimes even your personal opinion of it, you can have your opinion, and sometimes there's still potential for money to be made, right? Like one, it's a great example is my personal opinion. I do not like the way Radiant handled their issue with the entity at all whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, at that time, when that happened, back in April, I dumped 100% of my bag. I just did not like the way they handled that. So that was me, a personal thing where I just did not like it, the way they handled it, right? Because the way they handle that, it's going to tell me if something were to happen in the future, they're going to also probably handle that poorly. Okay, so that's why at the time, even though it was going to be at a loss, and it's one that was definitely going to be a long-term hold because it's one I'd been mining for a very long time, I decided to dump it because of that. Now, even though I do have this personal bias, does that mean that there's no value here? There definitely is. Like right now at these current prices, I should have bought it this morning when I was talking about it. Shout out to Seth. He brought it up this morning. I looked at the price. I was like, oh, yep, time to buy. And I didn't do it yet. Did go up a little bit. Gonna probably buy some right after the stream. I'll buy back the same amount I sold back then. Because right now I can get double the amount what I sold. Because it's gone down so much. So it did have that recent pump after the ASICs, but it's pretty much dumped 50% since then. Okay, so even though I do have my bias, it's one that arguably made it stronger because of that. Again, they survived almost a worst case scenario with the entity taking over for, what was it, like 4 or 5 months. And they survived that. The community is still there. Lots of room to grow here. That's the main appeal here. So that's why it's so cheap. I wouldn't buy miners for it. I would be buying the coin 100%. Even when we did our calculation with the RX0 back here, it made no sense. And obviously down here now at half the price and with the hash rate going through the roof, at 100% makes more sense to just buy the coin here versus the ASIC. Okay, and this is one. Again, I don't think this thing's going to be groundbreaking. I don't think it's going to crack the top 100. It doesn't have to, right? The market cap is only freaking, it's under 11 million. It's at 10 million and change. Okay, so even if it does, if in the peak of the bull run, it only hits $100 million market cap, that's a 10 freaking X. Okay, so again, like a comparison on the coin perspective, comparing it to Lithium's current valuation, which again, this is the low price. It's at like $1.30 right now. If it just reaches Lithium's current market cap in the peak of the bull market, which I think it's going to probably exceed that. Again, who knows? But that's a 10x potential. And that's if it just reaches that number. If it only gets a little bit of traction, let's say the ASIC manufacturers pump it, there's potential for crazy, ridiculous numbers here, right? So a lot of potential there, even though personally, I'm not a fan of how they handle things. But again, I'm not going to let that sway my opinion of the money-making potential. This is where you have to take the emotions out and just look at the fundamentals and look at the potential there. Is there still value there? Is there still money to be made? And if there is, you can go for it. So like for this, I'm going to buy the $1 million back that I sold at less than half the price, and I'm going to just hodl it at this point. Why? Because there's still just value, right? Am I going to dump my bag in it? I'm going to dump a big amount? No, it's going to be like 1% of my portfolio, and I'm good with that, right? At this point, it makes sense, right? And that's what I'm looking for. Specifically now, it's these smaller market cap coins. But at the end of the day, trust your gut, look at different things, but also think about it, take the emotion out, look at the fundamentals. How is the team? How is the project? Is it still there? Because there's going to be FUD with a lot of things. And you just got to look through the noise and see if it makes sense. Because in reality, things like this, things like the times during the entity when it was even lower, those are the opportunities you want to look for, because those are where the big gains are going to be. Okay, and we've seen them time and time again. And that's why it's up to you to trust your gut. Don't trust my perspective where I'm shitting on Radian. Don't trust somebody else's. You can take that into account, but do your own research. See what makes sense. See if you're going to hodl it. Look for those opportunities like right now. Okay, a great example of that we've talked about over and over and over is during the time with Solana, right? Everybody was shitting on it back in 22 when FTX collapsed. Everything was going on. Did anything fundamentally change with the project? No, it was still there. They were still building. They were still doing their thing. Even after they provided their financials as far as how much FTX actually had, how much was locked up, things still made sense. And that's why I went hard at that time when I did, right? At the time, though, the current sentiment all over the place. Solana's dead, going to zero. And this is from everybody, including people in our own community also. It was a laughingstock. But at that time, conviction for me, it made sense. Opportunity was there. And I jumped in, and then more than a 10x later, and this is at 150, where again, we're at 200 not too long ago. That's where we stand, right? But that's one of those things where I'm looking through the noise. I am trusting my gut, my instinct, my research, looking at it. Did anything change fundamentally with that coin? No, it's just the sentiment of everything else, just like arguably with Radiant. Okay, kind of the same situation there, and it's going to happen with other coins, and it's these times where you want to look at those opportunities, because these are the last, again, few months before we're going to get into this position where we start getting momentum with the market, and we're not going to be looking back as much. Okay, so it's very important to carefully select what you want to choose, what you think is going to run, what you think is going to have potential for this next year, guys, because again, we're still early, there's still time, but time is really running out for these like big opportunities. For things like this, with like Radiant, for example, which is ranked number 1,400 with a $10 million market cap, where it's been around for over 2 years, big community, huge potential, right? And that's why I'm not too big on like meme coins and such right now, especially people shilling these meme coins that are already in the top like 50. It's like, bro, there's only so much that they can go up with that kind of market cap. Versus there's coins that, being in the mining community that we are, that have these kinds of potential. I mean, literally, like this thing can do well over a 10x, can do a 15, 20, 30 plus x, especially if it gains traction, can go crazy. Do I think that's personally going to happen? No, this is more of a moonshot thing. Do I think a 10x is pretty possible though? Yeah, right? $100 million market cap in the bull market, if things run the way we think they are. Bitmain makes an ASIC for this thing. Other manufacturers come in. Doesn't take much to pump this thing with this much of a small of a market cap, right? So the time is now, guys. Position yourselves, prepare yourselves, look at different things. The time is now, guys, right? Whether it's buying the coins outright, buying hardware, all that shit is going to go up, right? Whether it's DePIN devices, ASICs, the coins themselves, all that stuff, guys. It's not too late. You're not super early though, right? We have still enough time though to make some good runs. Again, specifically now, if you want to make that big money, you gotta be able to take that risk. Okay, and Radiant can also dump, right? This thing can go to 0 or it can go up massively. Okay, and not just Radiant. Again, I'm not saying to buy Radiant or that Radiant's a good coin. I'm just giving that example. Okay, but let me know in the comments, guys. What do you guys think? Do you guys agree, disagree? Do you guys look at any of these things, or are you just blindly going? I know a lot of you guys do. You just mine everything and hodl everything, and that's also a good strategy, right? Because at that point, or you can also have a bag of everything, and again, all it's going to take is that one to pump, right? So everybody's strategy is going to be different. Mine tends to be more focused on higher conviction plays and just bigger bags of those, right? So even plays that aren't the biggest conviction in the world, like for me, Radiant wouldn't be, but it's one I'm going to allocate a certain amount. And if it goes up, cool. And if it doesn't, also cool, right? So Radiant, Nexa, like there's a bunch of these coins that are out of the top 500. They're like in the top 1,000 range that have pretty good potential, right? So at that point, am I going to allocate a ton to? No, because that way if it goes to 0, it goes to 0. If it does a 10x, a 20x, amazing. If it goes beyond that, even more amazing, right? But a lot of the capital is going to go into those more high conviction plays, right? So let me know again in the comments, guys, what you guys are doing, what do you guys think, and which ones are you guys into? Are you guys kind of following the same thing? Are you guys actually into Carlson or some of these other weird little GPU coins? Let me know in the comments, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I am out.